The sound of your cracking knuckles is not the sound of bones rubbing together, nor is it the simple popping of an air bubble, but is actually a microscopic liquid explosion creating a temporary vacuum cavity inside your joint fluid. When you pull your fingers or bend your toes, you are triggering a sudden physical phenomenon known as tribonucleation, where the rapid separation of joint surfaces drops internal pressure so violently that the liquid literally tears apart. This microscopic tearing creates a tiny void of vapor that collapses with a sharp acoustic shock wave. You are hearing the physical sound of liquid being ripped open at the molecular level. Understanding this hidden biological event changes how we view our daily physical movements and the complex hydration systems keeping us fluid. You are about to discover the exact hydraulic mechanisms operating inside your skeletal joints, how pressure fluctuations dictate your physical flexibility, and why this acoustic release feels so deeply satisfying to your nervous system. Think about the last time you felt that familiar tightness in your fingers, wrists, or spine. You squeeze, you twist, and then crack. There is an immediate, almost addictive sensation of relief that washes over the joint. To understand why this happens, we must look inside the joint capsule, a sealed, airtight chamber that acts as the ultimate biological shock absorber. Inside this capsule sits a clear, highly viscous substance called synovial fluid. This liquid is a biological masterpiece. It has the consistency of a raw egg white, rich in a massive molecule called hyaluronic acid, which is synthesized by specialized cells lining the joint capsule. Under normal conditions, this fluid forms a slippery, microscopic barrier that prevents your bones from ever grinding against each other. But synovial fluid is not just a simple grease. It is what scientists call a non-Newtonian fluid. This means its viscosity changes depending on how fast you move it. If you move slowly, the fluid becomes thick and highly protective, acting like a liquid cushion. If you move quickly, it instantly becomes thin and slippery, allowing for rapid, low-friction motion. It is a dynamic fluid cushion that adapts in real time to the demands of your body. But what happens when we stretch that capsule? Imagine a suction cup pressed firmly against a sheet of glass. If you try to pull it straight off, you must fight the atmospheric pressure holding it in place. The harder you pull, the more tension builds inside the tiny space between the rubber and the glass. This is exactly what happens when you pull your finger. As the joint surfaces are drawn apart, the volume inside the capsule increases, but because the capsule is airtight, the pressure inside drops dramatically. This creates a powerful localized vacuum. For decades, scientists debated whether the sound was caused by a bubble forming or a bubble popping. In 2015, a lead researcher named Dr. Gregory Kowchuk and his team at the University of Alberta used ultra-fast magnetic resonance imaging to resolve this mystery once and for all. They designed a custom machine that pulled a subject's finger while inside the scanner, capturing the exact millisecond of the pop. What they discovered was stunning. The sound occurs at the exact moment the joint surfaces separate and a dark void appears in the fluid. It is not the bursting of a bubble that makes the noise, but the sudden, violent creation of a gas cavity. When the local pressure inside the synovial fluid drops below the vapor pressure of the dissolved gases within it, mostly carbon dioxide, the gas instantly flashes out of solution. Think of it like cracking open a sealed bottle of warm soda. The moment the cap twists off, the pressure drops, and thousands of tiny bubbles instantly appear out of nowhere. Inside your joint, this happens in less than 300 milliseconds. The fluid literally rips open and a tiny bubble forms. This is tribonucleation, the creation of a cavity from nothing. The fluid rushes back in to fill the edges of this new void, and the collision of this liquid boundary creates the signature popping sound that echoes through your bones. Now, if you try to crack that same joint immediately afterward, nothing happens. Why is that? You have to wait roughly 20 minutes before you can hear that sound again. This is known as the refractory period, a beautifully elegant physical limit of human biology. Once that gas bubble is formed, it cannot simply vanish instantly. It takes time, specifically 20 to 30 minutes, for those gaseous molecules of carbon dioxide to slowly dissolve back into the surrounding synovial fluid, like sugar melting into hot tea. Until that gas is completely reabsorbed and the fluid returns to its fully liquid state, the internal pressure cannot drop low enough to trigger another vacuum collapse. But does this constant popping damage your joints over time? Many of us grew up hearing warnings that cracking our knuckles would inevitably lead to swollen joints and arthritis. To test this, a dedicated physician named Dr. Donald Unger embarked on an extraordinary self-directed biological experiment. For over 50 years, he cracked the knuckles of his left hand at least twice every single day, while leaving his right hand completely uncracked as a control. In his 2009 study, which earned him an Ig Nobel Prize, he analyzed the joints of both hands and found absolutely no difference in cartilage wear or arthritis risk between them. This is because the bubble formation itself is not destructive. In fact, it might actually be a sign of healthy, well-lubricated joint architecture. Your articular cartilage, the smooth white tissue capping the ends of your bones, has no direct blood supply of its own. It cannot rely on blood vessels to bring it oxygen, glucose, and amino acids. Instead, it behaves exactly like a dense, fibrous sponge. When you compress a joint, you squeeze metabolic waste out of the cartilage. When you release the compression, or when you expand the joint and cause a sudden pressure drop through cavitation, you create a vacuum that draws fresh, nutrient-rich synovial fluid deep into the microscopic pores of the cartilage matrix. This process is called imbition, and it is the only way your cartilage cells, called chondrocytes, can feed themselves and repair daily wear and tear. Without movement and these subtle pressure changes, your cartilage would literally starve. When you sit still for hours, your joint fluid settles, becoming thick and stagnant, like a bowl of gelatin left in the fridge. The cartilage dries out, hardening and becoming more vulnerable to microscopic tearing. But when you move, when you stretch, and yes, even when your joints occasionally pop, you are actively cycling the biological fluids inside your body. You are shifting from a dry, high-friction state to a beautifully lubricated, low-friction state. It is a self-cleaning, self-nourishing hydraulic system that relies on physical motion to stay alive. There is also a fascinating neurological reason why cracking your joints feels so incredibly good. Surrounding every joint capsule is a dense network of sensory receptors called mechanoreceptors, specifically Golgi tendon organs and Pacinian corpuscles. These microscopic sensors are wired directly to your nervous system, constantly monitoring pressure, tension, and the position of your limbs in space. When a joint undergoes cavitation, the sudden, rapid expansion of the capsule stretches these receptors in a fraction of a second. This trigger sends a high-speed electrical signal to your spinal cord and brain, which responds by instantly releasing endorphins and telling the surrounding, tight muscles to relax. It is a literal biological reset button, a physical release of tension that calms your nervous system and restores a feeling of ease to your movements. So how can we use this profound understanding of joint hydraulics to optimize our physical health and maintain effortless movement throughout our lives? First, we must practice what physical therapists call controlled articular rotations. Instead of forcefully popping your neck or knuckles to relieve tension, which only provides a temporary sensory release, you should systematically guide your major joints through their entire pain-free range of motion. Think of slow, deliberate circles with your shoulders, wrists, hips, and ankles. This gentle, controlled movement does not create the violent pressure drops of cavitation, but instead acts as a manual pump, gently squeezing the synovial fluid back and forth across the cartilage surfaces. Do this for just 3 minutes every 45 minutes of sitting. By doing so, you are preventing the synovial fluid from pooling and thickening, keeping the viscosity low and the nutrient delivery high. Second, we must feed the chemical precursors of this vital fluid. Your body cannot manufacture high-quality, viscous synovial fluid if it lacks the raw building blocks. This means prioritizing dietary compounds that support hyaluronic acid and collagen synthesis. Consuming bone broth rich in gelatin or foods high in vitamin C and sulfur, like garlic, onions, and cruciferous vegetables, provides the exact amino acids your chondrocytes need. Additionally, hydration is paramount. Because synovial fluid is mostly water-bound to complex sugar molecules, even mild dehydration decreases the volume of fluid inside the joint capsule. When fluid volume drops, pressure changes become more erratic, and the protective barrier between your bones thins. Drink clean water consistently throughout the day to keep your biological shock absorbers fully inflated. Third, utilize the power of localized temperature cycling to accelerate joint fluid exchange. Applying heat to a stiff joint dilates the surrounding blood vessels, bringing a rush of fresh blood to the outer joint capsule, which increases the elasticity of the surrounding ligaments. Follow this immediately with a brief application of cold, which constricts the vessels and pushes metabolic waste out of the area. This hot and cold contrast therapy creates a powerful thermal pump. It accelerates the rate at which dissolved carbon dioxide gas is reabsorbed into the joint fluid during that critical 20-minute refractory period, restoring the joint to its optimal mechanical state much faster than rest alone. When you hear your joints pop now, you will no longer perceive your body as a creaky, mechanical machine wearing down with every passing year. You are not a collection of rusty hinges destined to dry up and grind to a halt. Instead, you are looking at an exquisitely designed, self-hydrating biological ecosystem. Every pop is a reminder of the dynamic forces of pressure, liquid, and gas constantly balancing themselves beneath your skin. You are a living hydraulic masterpiece designed to move, flex, and adapt to every environment you encounter. Now that you understand the microscopic physics of your joints, you are equipped to care for your skeletal framework with true biological precision. Keep your fluids moving, feed your connective tissues, and marvel at the incredible chemistry operating inside you every single second. Our journey into the hidden mechanics of your body is only just beginning, and what we will uncover next about the silent, invisible forces shaping your biological health from the outside world will change how you live every single day.